For 2 decades, being a Knicks fan meant one thing: pain. The New York Knicks were the league's most expensive punchline.
That's a great start for Karl Anthony Towns. Offensively, he had
a franchise drowning in bad contracts, bad decisions, and bad basketball, playing in the world's most famous arena to a fan base that deserved so much better. Every year, the hope. Every year, the heartbreak. While other franchises were building dynasties, the Knicks were building a highlight reel of everything you should never do in professional sports. But something shifted. Something got built. Quietly, stubbornly, in the background.
So you can't stay at that level. Brunson this.
While everyone was still laughing. Stick around, because the story of how the New York Knicks went from the league's biggest joke to the league's most feared team is one of the most extraordinary rebuilds in modern sports history. And the rest of the NBA is just now starting to understand what's coming. To appreciate what the Knicks are right now, you have to sit in what they were for a long time, and it is not comfortable. We take a little trip to the famous 1999 when we had Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston's finger roll. The Knicks were in the NBA Finals, an 8th-seeded underdog team that had no business being there but somehow were. That was the last time this franchise sniffed championship basketball. What came next was the beginning of one of the most painful collapses in basketball history. Isaiah Thomas was the team president, and we had Stephon Marbury and the Eddie Curry contract, all a parade of coaches who couldn't survive the circus long enough to build anything real. The amazing irony in all of this was the Garden crowd, who were the loudest, most passionate crowd in professional basketball, showing up night after night to watch a product that had no right to be on the same floor as the league's elite.
Oh, baby, what a play! Stephon!
Now that's an all-star play.
Wow!
At one point, the Knicks had the highest payroll in the league and the worst record. They were paying luxury tax money for lottery team basketball. Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball, had become a museum of missed potential. The jokes literally wrote themselves. Every draft pick was a disappointment, and even the free agent signings turned into anchors, one after the other. Every "this is the year" moment collapsed by February. And just when it seemed like the Knicks were permanently broken, someone walked in through the back door and started building something nobody saw coming. Leon Rose took over as team president in 2020. It was not a case of a very robust fanfare. As a matter of fact, there was no splashy press conference. Just a former agent who understood talent, understood culture, and understood that the Knicks didn't need a superstar. What this team needed was a spine. The first move was hiring Tom Thibodeau as head coach, and New York's reaction was skeptical at best. Thibodeau was seen as old school, stubborn, a defense-first coach who played his starters 40 minutes a night and ground games into dust. The media wasn't sold, and the critics had lots of materials to work with. All in all, it didn't look very good for the Knicks on paper. But Thibodeau had something the Knicks hadn't had in years: an identity. But the coaching hire was only half the story. The other half was about to walk through the door in sneakers, and the league wasn't ready. Of course, his was hard defense, physical basketball.
Here's Towns. Inside.
He played the kind of basketball where every possession matters. And then they drafted Julius Randle, then R.J. Barrett, then Emmanuel Quickley, then, and this is where the whole story pivots, they drafted a kid out of Tennessee named Jalen Brunson's eventual backcourt partner and brought in a point guard from Dallas who nobody in New York fully understood yet. Because when Jalen Brunson walked into Madison Square Garden for the first time as a New York Knick, nobody outside of hardcore NBA circles was panicking.
Jalen Brunson's first shot of his finals career goes down.
He wasn't a superstar. He didn't have a shoe deal that moved markets. He wasn't arriving on a private jet with a documentary crew. He was just a point guard, a really, really dangerous point guard.
Inside and floats it up and in. Now he's starting to get the feel.
In everything the NBA saw about Jalen Brunson, there was even more they didn't see. They saw the size, 6 feet, generously, and decided he had a ceiling. They saw the lack of athleticism and drew a line. They looked at his game and said, "Nice player, not exactly a franchise cornerstone, but he was decent." They were catastrophically wrong. What Brunson has is something you cannot draft, cannot coach, and cannot manufacture. He makes the right play, at the right time, in the right moment.
Knocks down the
every single time the game gets too heavy for everyone else. Call it feel or IQ, call it whatever you want. What it looks like in practice is a man who turns Madison Square Garden into a weapon. And just like that, the switch flipped completely. The crowd, the noise, the history, everything that used to haunt the Knicks now fuels them. And Brunson is the one holding the match. In his first season in New York, he averaged over 24 points a game and dragged the Knicks into the playoffs. In his second season, he went supernova in the postseason, dropping 40-point games in the 4 consecutive games in the playoffs. Nothing about it was human at all. We can praise Brunson all we want, but a point guard alone doesn't terrify the NBA.
Right there to pick it up. Brunson to drive, sidestep, floats it up and in.
What terrifies the NBA is what the Knicks built around him. And that right there should have been the warning sign. But here's the part that actually kept front offices up at night. OG Anunoby, the trade that changed everything. When the Knicks acquired OG from Toronto in December 2023, it was a lot more than just a regular roster move. He was a 6'7" wing who guards the opponent's best player every single night, who can hit a corner 3 when you need it most, who plays defense with a kind of cold, personal intensity that makes scorers genuinely uncomfortable. Pair him with Mikal Bridges, another elite two-way wing acquired in a blockbuster trade.
3 is good, and Mikal Bridges, after a slow start.
And suddenly the Knicks have a defensive perimeter that opponents have to solve before they even think about scoring. Teams that rely on their wing players to create everything are walking into a wall. And then there is Karl Anthony Towns. When the Knicks traded for Cat, the basketball world did a double take. A franchise center who can shoot threes, stretch the floor,
Karl Anthony Towns on the glass to the basket,
and reposition the entire offensive architecture of a team, arriving in New York to play alongside Brunson, Bridges, and Anunoby. The Knicks had quietly, almost invisibly, assembled one of the most complete rosters in the Eastern Conference. And here's where it gets genuinely scary for everyone else. There is no arena in professional basketball like Madison Square Garden in a playoff game. And even outside Madison Square Garden, like we saw after the Knicks won the Finals Game 1. In all the years of suffering, this has been one thing that has remained a constant. The noise changes the game. It has changed games for 60 years, and right now, with a roster this good, and a fan base that has been starving for this exact moment for 25 years.
Bridges a good look, connects.
Visiting teams don't just have to beat the Knicks. They have to beat the Knicks and 18,000 people who have been waiting 2 decades to make this noise.
He takes advantage of the mismatch.
Ask any player who has walked into the Garden in a playoff series what it felt like. The ones who are honest will tell you the truth. It is the loudest, most hostile, most electric environment in the sport. Road teams lose their identity in there. Shooters lose their rhythm. Point guards lose their composure. And the Knicks this year, this particular version of the Knicks, have been feeding off that energy like it's oxygen. But the crowd is just the atmosphere. What the Knicks bring onto the floor every single night is something far more dangerous, and most teams don't realize it until it's too late. Most great teams in the modern NBA are built for pace, for threes, for a spread pick-and-roll offense that generates clean looks in transition, beautiful basketball, easy to watch, easy to disrupt if you have the right personnel and the right game plan. The Knicks are built for war, physical defense, and second-chance points. You know, all the dirty work that a lot of teams do not like to do. Grinding possessions down to their final seconds and then making the play when it matters. Every player on this roster has been tested in hostile environments. Every player on this roster has won games they had no business winning. That is genuinely terrifying to prepare for. You cannot scheme your way around a team's character or draw up a play against a group that has collectively decided losing is not an option in this building. 25 years of losses accumulate. It becomes weight. And then, if you build the right team around the right people in the right city, it becomes fuel. The Knicks have been carrying that weight for 2 decades. The rest of the NBA had years to take the Knicks seriously.
There's Towns inside.
Years to watch the roster construction, read the front office moves, understand that New York was not rebuilding for a playoff appearance. They were rebuilding for a dynasty. Nobody paid enough attention. Now the Knicks are standing in the middle of the Eastern Conference, physical and hungry and playing in front of a crowd that would riot for them. And the rest of the league is having a very uncomfortable realization. The New York Knicks are no longer the punchline. They are the problem.
Smart play there by Brunson.
And the NBA has absolutely no idea what to do about it.